Tonight, while scrolling through your phone and watching television at the same time, you're about to do something that humans from 300,000 years ago never did. So, what are you going to do? You're going to choose darkness. Not because the sun forced you into it like ancient humans, but entirely by your own choice. You'll turn off your phone and slowly drift into sleep. That choice would have been an unimaginable luxury for the people who lived 300,000 years before you, because for them, darkness was not an option. It was a punishment. First, let's understand what darkness really was. Not the kind of darkness you know, not the comforting bedroom darkness created by a phone charging on the nightstand, the glow of streetlights leaking through the curtains, or the green blinking light of a smoke detector. That's not darkness. That's just dimmed light. Real darkness is the absence of everything. You can't see your hand in front of your face. The ground beneath your feet disappears. Sound becomes the only map you have of the world. That darkness, complete, absolute, and consuming, was the place where every one of your ancestors spent half of their lives. Every night, for 300,000 years. Then, something changed. Was there fire? Yes, there was. But the oldest truly controlled fire ever discovered so far was found in Wonderwerk Cave, a full 1 million years ago, before Homo sapiens even existed. One of our ancestors crouched inside that cave and kept a flame alive. How do we know? Because the ashes of that fire, along with burned human bones, were found there. We're talking about fire, perhaps the greatest invention of all. The most important turning point in human history. Older than Roman Empire, older than the pyramids, older than any city, any language. The ghost of a fire that burned 1 million years ago. And that fire was not just a source of warmth. It was a boundary. Before it, the night belonged to animals that could see through darkness. Leopards, hyenas, these creatures did not fear the dark, they ruled it. And your ancestors, with their forward-facing eyes built to perceive colour and daylight, were prey within the night. Fire changed that. A campfire creates a circle of safety roughly 9 meters wide. Predators rarely cross into that boundary. Fear of fire is older than learned behavior. It is embedded deep within the nervous systems of nearly every land predator on Earth. But safety alone does not explain what happened next. In 2014, Polly Wiesner published a remarkable study. For years, she had recorded conversations among the Juhoansi Bushmen of the Kalahari, one of the last communities living in a way close to the original human lifestyle. During the day, around 80% of conversations were practical. Where is the herd? Which roots are ready to harvest? Who owes what to whom? Daytime conversations were about survival, but at night, around the fire, everything changed. At night, 81% of conversations became storytelling. These were not instructions or warnings. They were stories of distant lands, ideas about the world, entertainment for the entire group, conversations and jokes shared around the fire. When fire entered human life, the campfire did more than simply extend the day. It created an entirely new kind of human time, a completely different level of existence. Fire gave humans something beyond survival, meaningful time for themselves. In many ways, fire began the first true socialization. The campfire was the first theatre, the first library, the place where empathy became a form of technology. In a very real sense, it was where we became who we are. Every story you have ever loved, every novel, every film, every legend that sends chills down your spine, traces an unbroken line back to someone sitting on the ground, 9 meters away from the darkness, telling another person something that did not need to be said, but needed to be heard. But fire did not only give us things, it also took things away from us. And it took scientists to help us understand what had been lost. With the rise of fire, regular sleep as we know it almost disappeared. In 2001, historian Roger Akirch published a paper that created a delayed shockwave in the field of sleep science. The information was astonishing. For 16 years, he had studied the written records of the pre-industrial world, prayer books, court documents, diaries, medical texts, letters exchanged between ordinary people, even hidden passages within the works of Homer and Geoffrey Chaucer. And across centuries of human culture, he kept finding the same phrase repeated over and over again, a phrase nobody had thought to take literally. First sleep. Second sleep. Before the Industrial Revolution, the entire human world slept in 2 separate blocks, divided by 1 or 2 hours of wakefulness in the middle of the night. The pattern was completely different from ours. People would go to bed shortly after darkness fell, sleep for 4 hours, and then wake up. Not because of insomnia, not because of stress. They woke up because that time itself had value. They visited neighbors, they prayed, they interpreted dreams while the images were still vivid. A physician's handbook from the 1500s advised patients to study and reflect during the watch, the quiet interval between first and second sleep, when the mind was calm and the world stood still. For centuries, historians read these references and assumed they were metaphors. Before science could explain it, the idea that humans once slept differently seemed too strange to take seriously. So when the evidence contradicted the assumption, people did what humans have always done. They translated it away and ignored it. Until science finally arrived. Science would eventually shine light on many things that once seemed impossible to understand. In 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Ware from the National Institute of Mental Health removed artificial light from the lives of 8 volunteers. 14 hours of darkness every night, the kind of natural darkness our ancestors actually lived within. Within a few weeks, without instructions or suggestions, every participant entered the exact same rhythm. 4 hours of sleep, 1 to 3 hours of quiet wakefulness, then 4 more hours of sleep. In other words, fire had been stealing sleep from us all along, as if that forgotten state had simply been waiting to return. Ware measured hormone levels during those waking intervals and discovered something that stunned him. Elevated prolactin levels, the same neurochemical state associated with deep meditation and orgasm. Brainwave patterns completely different from ordinary wakefulness. Participants described the experience as profoundly peaceful, timeless, almost like floating between worlds. This was not a sleep interruption. It was a state of consciousness, a biologically distinct condition that humans experienced for 300,000 years, yet most people alive today have never encountered even once. We did not just change our sleep schedule. We erased an entire room from the house of human experience. Isn't that strange? So how did such a deep transformation happen? How did something so fundamental disappear? Not because of an explosion, not because of a war. We lost it because of something as small as a lamp. Paris, 1667. Louis XIV ordered lanterns to be placed throughout the streets, not for beauty, but for control. Night, which had always belonged to danger and the supernatural, became a space managed by the state through artificial light. London followed the same path. Cheap candles became widespread. Gas lamps pushed darkness out of entire neighborhoods. The rule of darkness slowly began to fade. Then, in 1879, Thomas Edison commercialized the electric light bulb, and within a single human generation, the night that had existed throughout all of history vanished. Isn't that unbelievable? A tiny lamp erased darkness itself. The word curfew comes from the French phrase couvre-feu, cover the fire. In medieval towns, a bell would ring every night, signaling that everyone had to extinguish their flames, because darkness was not considered the enemy. Darkness was the law. Walking at night without a lantern was treated as suspicious, because only criminals moved through hours that did not belong to ordinary people. Naturally, societies created rules and precautions around it. Now think about it. Looking back, we call this superstition. We call it fear. But what if it was wisdom instead? The human body does not know it lives in the 21st century. When light hits your retina at 11 p.m., your brain cannot truly distinguish it from midday sunlight. It does not understand the difference, so it adapts accordingly. That light suppresses melatonin, the hormonal signal your cells have received at twilight for 300,000 years. And that is a serious problem, because it fragments your sleep. It erases the quiet interval between first and second sleep and replaces it with a restless wakefulness filled with a sense of failure, exhaustion, and even loss of motivation. We call this insomnia-related dysfunction. We treat it like a pathology. But what if waking up at 2 in the morning is not your body malfunctioning? What if your body simply remembers? Researchers found that people who spent just 1 week camping without artificial light experienced melatonin cycles shifting back by nearly 2 hours. And what does that tell us? There's more. Just 1 week. 7 days in darkness, and 300,000 years of biological programming re-emerge as if they had never disappeared at all, as if they had simply been waiting for the lights to go out. Isn't that strange? The human body, that lost interval between first and second sleep, was never truly empty. In fact, it may have been the most human hour of the day. Imagine a mind suspended in biochemical calm, no schedules, no alarms, no screens, drifting through the darkness, focused only on itself. Today, we chase that exact state through supplements, meditation apps, and breathing exercises. Yet for most of human history, it was simply an ordinary Tuesday night. The Milky Way, the same galaxy every human being slept beneath for 300,000 years, without ever needing to travel anywhere to see it, is now invisible to nearly 80% of the human population. And the reason is not that the galaxy moved. It never did. The real reason is that we covered it with light. We defeated darkness, but we never stopped to ask what it was we had killed. Tonight, when you press that switch, the light will fill the room, and you will not hesitate for even a second. But somewhere inside the ancient machinery of your body, within the prolactin that never rises, the second sleep that never arrives, the silent hour you no longer spend drifting between worlds, something older than civilization is still waiting, and perhaps always will. Because waiting is its most natural state. It has been waiting for you your entire life, and it will keep waiting until you turn off the light.